Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the John Quintero Show, San Diego Sports Talk after a fantastic baseball game by our San Diego Padres in Game 1 of the Wild Card Series against the Atlanta Braves. Boy, there were a lot of stars, absolutely a lot of stars, and just want to remind everyone, during the Wild Card Series, we're going to be here after the ball game. Let everybody kind of get home and get settled, and then we're going to come on and talk for a while, and obviously – if you're at the ball game tonight, I'd love to hear from you. I'd really love to hear from you. I mean, I looked at that attendance. I mean, Gallagher Square, it was just mobbed tonight. They had over 47,000 people at Petco Park. And a lot of you may be watching on your phone, sitting in the car trying to, get home from that thrilling 4-0 victory. And I want to remind everyone, please subscribe to the program. We'd really, really appreciate that. San Diego Sports Talk, the John Quintero Show. And again, you can follow me on Facebook at John Quintero, and you can follow me on X at Coach Quintero44. But we'll be here tonight, tomorrow night. I hope I'm not with you on Thursday, to be honest with you. I'm hoping the Padres can wrap it up tomorrow night. And again, I want to get your comments. If you're at the game, I certainly want to hear from you. If you watch the game, listen to the game, I want to hear from you. Now, this is an open forum. This is a talk show. Unlike most talk shows in San Diego these days, we actually like to hear what the fans have to say. And we certainly want to hear what you Padre fans have to say. I mean, it was a great ball game. And really, at the end of the day, Padres did what they were supposed to do tonight. And we're going to talk more about that. But, man, there were so many stars. What was interesting tonight? The Padres, they won the game 4-0. They were out hit by the Atlanta Braves 7-5. But let's talk a little bit about Michael King right from the get-go. Michael King, who I think most of you that have been following my podcast, I mentioned over 2 weeks ago. I laid out the rotation. Now, the rotation's been a little bit different with Mike Shildt, but I said all along, and I steadfastly said, Michael King has to start game 1. Now, did I expect him to go 7 innings, give up 5 hits, no runs, no walks, and strike out 12? No, I didn't. But he's been the most consistent pitcher of the Padres all year long. And he went out there tonight and threw the game of his life, absolute game of his life. And he threw to a guy that he knew well from the Yankee organization, Kyle Higashioka, but Michael King was dealing. Now, he got himself into a couple of early jams, but he was able to get out of it. And, man, he was working the outside part of that plate all night long, and the Braves never were able to adjust against him. He'd back guys off the plate. He'd come away. I mean, he had electric stuff. And the other thing that I would say, you don't think that the home crowd played a part in that tonight for Michael King? If you ever hear him in an interview, the guy's fantastic. I mean, he's a great guy, fantastic guy, and a guy that wanted to get an opportunity to start. He started a little bit last year for the Yankees, but mostly a bullpen guy. And then they tried to stretch him out as the season went on, basically because of injuries more than anything else. And he was in the Juan Soto deal. Now, think about this. 2 of the guys that were in the Juan Soto deal played a huge part in this ball game tonight. Huge part. Michael King went out and dealt 7 shutout innings. Kyle Higashioka caught a magnificent ball game behind the plate. He caught Jason Adam. He caught Robert Suarez in the final inning. Did a great job. But he also had a sac fly there in the second inning. Hit a solo homer in the 8th inning. I mean, he was getting it done. But Michael King, I can't begin to tell you. I mean, that was a tremendous performance. But the crowd played into it. I mean, you think about the introductions prior to the game. Place was going crazy, absolutely nuts. Padres come to bat in the first inning. Luis Arraez gets on with a base hit. First pitch Fernando sees. He hits it into the second deck. It's 2-0. I mean, it was deafening sound at Petco Park. In the launch angle, and I'm not really into launch angle and exit velocity. I want to know, did the guy get a hit or he didn't get a hit? But I got to mention this. Fernando tonight, when he hit that home run, his launch angle was 39. Okay, 39. That's the highest launch angle he's ever had in his big league career on a home run. and he hit it into the second deck. I mean, that was amazing the way he hammered that. But Michael King, it really is about Michael King. Fernando had the 2-run homer. Higashioka, the sac fly, the homer. But Michael King went out there, and the Braves lineup is good. I know they've had their struggles this year, and they've had some guys down. But at the end of the day, they're a tough lineup. They're a tested lineup. I mean, you got some tough dudes in that lineup. I mean, whether it's Ozzie Albies, I know he hasn't been swinging the bat all great. Michael Harris, who I'm a big fan of, Matt Olson, Marcelo Ozuna, Orlando RC. I mean, they got some dudes that can flat out hit. And I know Austin Riley's not playing. They've had a ton of injuries. But at the end of the day, you got to go out and play. And Michael King shoved tonight. No question about it. And again, I want to get your comments. We're going to do that here shortly. Okay. This is more for you than it is for me tonight, because I want people to sound off and tell me what you think and what you saw tonight. I'm going to tell you this right now. Padres need to get tomorrow night. They need to get tomorrow night, because then Dylan Cease can throw game 1 on Saturday at Dodger Stadium. Now, if the Padres were to get beat tomorrow night and Cease has to use his bullets on Thursday night, that means Yu Darvish. And nothing against you, but you want to be in a position of strength pitching-wise. And to have Yu Darvish down there ready for game 2 would be fantastic. Now, you could bring Michael King back, especially if you win game 1. And I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but these are things Mike Schilt, Ruben Niebel, and the staff have to look at. Okay, let's say that the Padres win on Wednesday night. Okay, so you got Dylan Cease going game 1. And probably you could go either Michael King or you could go Darvish if you want to give King a little bit more rest. Or if you have to use Cease on Thursday, Darvish throws game 1, King would throw game 2. I mean, these are all the things that managers, pitching coaches have to go with. But nonetheless, Padres did what they needed to do in game 1. And, the other thing that I'd mention, and, Brian Snitker, believe me, the Braves aren't going away. The Braves will show up tomorrow night for the ball game, a little after 5. They'll be there. They'll be ready to go. But the guy they threw tonight, A.J. Smith-Shawver, the guy had pitched in one big league game this year. That's how thin they are on pitching. And they had to play the doubleheader, yesterday. And they went with a guy that had pitched in one game at the big league level this year. 4 1/3 innings he pitched. Tonight, he went an inning and a third, gave up 4 hits and 3 earned runs, no walks, and a strikeout. I'll tell you this, the bullpen for the Braves was outstanding. Aaron Bummer, Jesse Chavez, Luke Jackson, they went 6 2/3 innings of shutout ball and only giving up 1 hit. So their bullpen came through for them. Their offense didn't, because of what King was able to do and what Jason Adam and Robert Suarez were able to do. Okay, but Michael King, outstanding. I mean, he was flat out dealing back there, getting ahead in the count, working hard, good pace, good rhythm, everything fantastic. Big fan of his. Hey, I want to remind you about our great sponsor, Grangetto's Farm and Garden Supply. And I believe Mr. Grangetto, Kevin, I believe he was at the game tonight. He loves to go to Padre baseball games. And at the end of the day, Grangetto's great community partners, folks. Absolutely great community partners. What I'd like you to do, more than me telling you everything that they have to offer, I'd like you to go to their website. Go to their website, check them out, and make sure, and I've been telling you this, make sure you sign up for their newsletter. It doesn't cost anything. It's like subscribing to my program. It doesn't cost anything. We want to talk sports, and Grangetto's want to help you with your garden lawn supplies. Again, go to their website, check them out, grangettos.com, Grangetto's Farm and Garden Supply. Sign up for their newsletter. It comes every 2 weeks in your mailbox, and believe me, it's going to give you some great, great information. Grangetto's Farm and Garden Supply, and make sure to tell them Coach John Quintero sent you. Okay, we got to talk about Mr. Tatis Jr. 4 years ago to the day, Fernando hit his first playoff home run. And, man, that ball he launched tonight, how cool was that? I mean, anybody out there listening to the program tonight that was sitting in the second deck and that ball came up to you? I mean, that was awesome. And it was really awesome because watching the people on the first deck look up and watch it keep going into the second deck, incredible. I mean, Fernando, and I haven't made any bones about it over the years Fernando's been here. I've been frustrated with him at times. I wasn't happy about the suspension. I'm disappointed when he's always out of the lineup due to injuries, but I understand those things happen. But I've been very upfront. He's my favorite player. Why? Because he's exciting. He makes things happen. And when he's really engaged, I mean, this guy is just an out-of-sight ball player. Out-of-sight ball player. He can do special things, whether it's throw, field. I love watching him run from first to third myself. And I know he's got the great power and all that, but I love watching him run the bases. Sometimes he'll maybe run into an out, but, man, he's fantastic. He's absolutely fantastic, and I really do enjoy watching him play. But he got the boys off in a good situation tonight, and that really allowed Michael King, not that he wasn't even in the first inning being aggressive, but when you got a 2-run lead, you don't have to nibble. I mean, you don't have to nibble. You can challenge guys, and he's got a great fastball. He's got good breaking stuff. I mean, Michael King is really a complete pitcher, and now it's taken him a while to get to the big league level and hone his craft. But, I heard an interview the other day. He was talking about Ruben Niebla, and he was just talking about the staff in general. And, I'd bring Joe Musgrove in, and Joe's going to throw tomorrow night. He's going to throw against the Padres' former number 1 draft pick, Max Fried, and I'm a big Max Fried fan. And I'll tell you about Max in a minute. But Musgrove is one of these guys, and Darvish, for that matter. These guys are always down there trying to invent a new pitch and work with grips and, throwing at this speed or throwing it at that speed or, maybe I'm not going to throw that tonight because it hadn't been working that great. I'm going to go with a different pitch. These guys are down there in the lab. They're working. And Ruben Niebla is right there in the middle of them. I read before the season started, just before they went to spring training, they're talking about that pitching lab over Point Loma Nazarene University. I haven't been there. I've read the article about it. It sounds really good. But, you take all that information, and some guys can digest it all. Others can't. But whatever you can use it to your benefit. And I think the Padre pitching staff, they're students of the game. The pitching staff are really a bunch of pros. They really are. And they try to help and coach one another, which is great. And they got a great pitching coach. And Ben Fritz, their bullpen coach, is an outstanding coach as well. Padres are pretty fortunate. But, getting back to Fernando, he's like a Willie Mays or a Hank Aaron or a Pete Rose, who I'm going to talk about in a little bit. When you come to the ballpark, any night you come, he may go 0 for 4, but he may win a ball game because he scaled the right field wall, or he threw out a guy at third base, or he got on in a fielder's choice, stole second, stole third, came home on a sacrifice fly. It's like Willie Mays used to say, even if you go 0 for 4, find a way to help win a ball game for your ball club. And Fernando's got that kind of ability. He really does. Okay, let's talk about Higashioka. Kyle Higashioka was basically a throw-in. And I'm kind of interested to see what the Padres are going to do with him. I mean, he hit 17 home runs this year. Is early in the year the backup guy to Luis Camposano, and then Camposano was struggling, and Higashioka came in. It didn't hit for a high average, but he started running into some balls. Got hot there for a while. He ended up with 17 home runs. His career high was 10. He had done that 3 straight years for the Yankees. And this year gets a little bit more of an opportunity, and he hit 17 home runs, and now he's got a playoff home run. But the big one, Padres had the 2-0 lead, and Cronenworth got on to lead off the inning and got over to third. He got on Cronenworth by a hit by pitch, but he gets over to third base, and Higashioka drives him in with a fly ball. Good baseball, good playoff baseball. Runs are going to be at a premium against top-notch ball clubs. And let's be honest, the Braves, they were scuffling. I mean, they had to throw a guy tonight that had pitched 4 1/3 innings all year at the big league level. And their bullpen did a nice job. But their offense couldn't hit Michael King or the Padres' 2 relievers. But this is a game the Padres needed to win. They had to win. Everything was lined up for the Padres to win. Now, do you think the Atlanta Braves are going to go down easy? No, they're not going to go down easy. It's a prideful organization. They got guys that have jewelry, guys that have championship rings, guys that have a major league pedigree. And they're not going to just roll over. They're probably going to be a little tired. I'm a big believer. Now, tonight, I think they probably, I would have thought, played on a lot of natural adrenaline from winning yesterday. Yeah, they had the 4.5 hour trip, to San Diego. I heard that they actually landed in the Tijuana airport and came across the border. I don't know if that's true or not. But tomorrow, normally the second day that you're in town is when it really hits you. And you know what? Their dauber has to be a little bit down. I mean, Michael King, 12 punch-outs. And then you had Robert Suarez didn't have a punch-out tonight. Jason Adam didn't have a punch-out. So they did strike out a total of 12 times. But they got a great young guy on the mound, Max Fried. I'm a big fan of Max Fried's. And but Higashioka not only did it with the bat, he also did it with his glove. And knowing Michael King and know what works best, he did a great job, a really, really good job. And it'll be interesting to see tomorrow night with Joe Musgrove on the mound. They're going to go back with Higashioka, or are they going to give Elias Diaz an opportunity? Diaz a good catcher, got some pop. He won the All-Star game 2 years ago for the National League with that home run. Was the MVP of the National League for the National League in the Major League All-Star game. He was the game MVP. So that's my thoughts on Kyle Higashioka. Now I want to tell you about our other sponsor. And I get a smile because I know this guy really well. I worked with him. And he was the smart one. Of the two of us, he was a smart guy, Josh Messiah. He's involved with yourreliablehomebuyers.com. They buy, sell. They'll help you any way you can. If you need to sell a home quickly, they'll get you cash. If you want to buy a home quickly, they'll help you out in that situation. They do it all. And it can be a little bit overwhelming. It really can. Even myself, I remember once upon a time when I bought a house, I was very overwhelmed. I was like 25 years of age, and they're telling me things. I'm nodding my head, but I didn't really know what I was doing. And what I'd like you to do, a couple of things. Number one, if you want to talk to someone, give them a call at 858-422-4116. That's 858-422-4116. Or if you just want to check them out and then give them a call, visit them at yourreliablehomebuyers.com. A lot of great information on their website. And like Josh told me a couple of weeks ago when I was talking with him, he goes, Coach, tell the folks we even buy old, ugly houses, and we'll pay cash for them. So again, yourreliablehomebuyers.com. Take a look at that. Okay, we're going to get out here shortly. If you've got any questions you'd like to shoot to me, go right ahead. Tonight, if you're a Padres fan, and I don't know, for me, I'm going to be kind of giddy tonight, and I'm probably going to have a hard time sleeping. And the reason for that is if the Padres win tomorrow night, or even if they win Thursday night, they win one out of the next two, then everybody's going to be geared up, man. We got the LA Dodgers. We got to win one more game, and then we play the Dodgers again in the best 3 out of 5. And, man, I'll be looking forward to that. And let me duck one in here real quick. Jason Wynn, just wondering, but did anyone feel nervous when Suarez came in that ninth? I think, Jason, that's a fair call. I think the way he pitched really, even in August, he wasn't the same guy. And in September. But the manager has shown confidence. I thought Robert, he did give up a hit tonight, but to me it looked like he was throwing with some pretty good confidence. He wasn't throwing scared. He was being aggressive. He was going at guys. And, the guy's had a great year. He had 6 blown saves. You know that 3 of them were in the month of September. He had half of his blown saves in the month of September. But you know what? Tanner Scott down in the bullpen tonight, didn't have to pitch. He's ready to go tomorrow night. He'll be all lathered up, ready to roll. This game went exactly the way the Padres wanted it to go. Have Michael King go deep, use 2 relievers. You got Tanner Scott. Suarez will be eligible tomorrow night. In fact, Suarez ought to be eligible, tomorrow night if needed. If you need him in a make or break game on Thursday, he can throw 3 days in a row. You can't throw a guy a fourth day in a row, but you can throw, unless they've thrown a ton of pitches, you can throw a guy 3 days in a row. But Jason, thank you very much for that call in. Like I said, Padres did what they had to do tonight. I mean, if they would have lost this game, it would have been in dire straits. I mean, we would be sitting here moaning, groaning. I definitely wouldn't sleep. I'm gonna sleep tonight, but it'll probably take me a while because I'll read all the box scores from the other games today. And speaking of the other games, how about the Mets? That was a wild game. They ended up beating Milwaukee at American Family Field 8-4. And in the American League wild card, you had 2 upset wins in game 1. You had the Detroit Tigers take it down the 3rd seed Houston Astros 3-1 at Minute Maid Park. In the other ball game, the AL wild card, Kansas City eked out a 1-0 victory over Baltimore at Camden Yards. Bobby Witt drove in the only run. So a little bit of a shocker there. Let's take a look here. RH from Kevin CV Pods. Pods need to really buckle up for the next 2 games. Don't underestimate Atlanta. A tough bunch of professional hitters. This series will go 3. It may go 3. And you look at tomorrow night. I mean, Joe Musgrove, we know Joe finished the season after he got over, all the problems he was having with his shoulder, elbow, whatever else. He came back and pitched great. But Max Fried didn't have a great year win-loss record, 11-10, but an outstanding record or outstanding ERA of 3.25. And I want to mention, and I totally agree with you, RH. Totally agree with you. I'm a big fan of Brian Snitker, and I'm a big fan of the Atlanta Braves. Many years ago, the man that got me into scouting with the Kansas City Royals, and he passed away many years ago now, Al Kupski. He was the right-hand man for John Sherholz when John Sherholz was running the Kansas City Royals. And Al got me into scouting and spent a lot of time with me teaching me how to evaluate ball players, amateur players, professional players. And so I spent a lot of time. And then when Mr. Sherholz left Kansas City and went to Atlanta, Al was getting up there in years, but he took Al Kupski with him. And so I've really followed how they draft and develop. And they do it as good as anybody. They really do. And so I've got a tremendous amount of respect for the Atlanta Braves, Brian Snitker, and Bobby Cox, big fan of Bobby Cox, Glavine and Smoltz and Maddox and Chipper Jones. I mean, those guys were some of the best of the business. I mean, all those guys I mentioned are in the Hall of Fame. And Bobby Cox, I love Bobby Cox. I remember one night he got kicked out of the Padre game in the first inning. He threw his lineup cards at the home plate umpire. It was like the Padres' first hitter leading off in the bottom of the first. I got the biggest kick out of that. But the Atlanta Braves aren't going to go away. And again, I want to tell you a quick story on Max Fried. Max Fried, when he got drafted, I think it was like 2011. I had a player that I still work with now. He's 33 years of age, Winton Bernard. He spent this last year in AAA with the White Sox and with the Minnesota Twins and getting ready to go to Mexicali to play winter ball. But the Padres ended up drafting him. But anyways, the Padres had an open tryout on a Sunday. And they told me, bring Winton down. And they ended up drafting him that year and releasing him a couple of years later. Really didn't get much of an opportunity, the old numbers game. And that's when they had Dylan Tate and Hunter Renfroe in the minor leagues. And so Winton didn't get much of a chance. But anyways, I take Winton down to Petco Park. Carlos Correa, now the shortstop for the Minnesota Twins, who ended up being the number 1 pick that year by the Houston Astros. He's working out there. And I went down the right field line where I was sitting. And Max Fried was coming out of Harvard Westlake. And, I worked when I was an amateur coach in high school, college. I always wanted to work with hitters. I did work with hitters a little bit, but I love working with hitters. But I got thrust into becoming a pitching coach. And I had to go out and learn and really work my tail off when I was a 22-year-old assistant in a junior college, Maricosta, which no longer has baseball, which is kind of ridiculous, but it is what it is. So anyways, I go down and I'm watching Max Fried throw this bullpen. And it's like Sunday, and the draft, I think, was going to be on Tuesday. And I'm watching this kid throw this great breaking ball, unbelievable curveball, and he still got the great curveball. And he grew into his body and throws harder. But the Padres traded him. They got Justin Upton. That didn't last real long. And Max Fried's gone on and been an all-star, been a part of a World Series championship, won at least, if not 2 Gold Gloves. I mean, fantastic. And he'll be ready to go. It's going to be a great matchup. Joe Musgrove going against Max Fried on Wednesday night, and then if needed, you're going to have Dylan Cease going for the Padres against a 40-year-old right-hander, Charlie Morton. Charlie Morton, boy, that guy's he's like a cat with 9 lives. I mean, he went from the Pittsburgh Pirates to Houston to Atlanta. I mean, he's had a remarkable career after a tough start playing for the Pittsburgh Pirates. But tomorrow you got Fried going against Joe Musgrove, and that game's going to start shortly after 5:30. Okay, I want to get to the big news that came down on Monday. Well, actually, there were 2 things that came down on Monday. One was in basketball. Dikembe Mutombo passed away at the age of 58 from brain cancer. And Mutombo, man, he was something else. Him and Patrick Ewing playing on that Georgetown team, that was like insane. Absolutely insane. And a great guy, became a global ambassador, really a world ambassador for basketball. A great guy, a lot of commercials. I didn't know he was sick, and I was really, really sad to see that come across the ticker yesterday morning. But the other one, Pete Rose. And I've got so many feelings about Pete Rose. I could probably stay on here until midnight and talk about him. Pete Rose was most happiest on a baseball field. Off the field, a lot of problems, let alone, gambling. Spent 5 months in jail for tax evasion. And I don't know if you heard the story. After he got out, the 5 months on tax evasion, his son, Pete Rose Jr., picked him up, and they went directly. And he wasn't a young man. He was like in his 50s. They went directly to a batting cage, and he wanted to take some swings and like ripping the ball back at the machine. And, Pete Rose, should he be in the Hall of Fame? In my opinion, they've got balls, bats, gloves. They got all kinds of stuff of Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame, but they don't have Pete Rose in. And Pete Rose was his worst enemy himself. Now, if you don't know the full story on Pete Rose was suspended in 1989 for betting on baseball. The thing that I never was aware of, I know he bet on baseball. I know he bet on his team to win. I was never, even the Dowd report, I don't believe they had that in the Dowd report, that he bet on his team to lose. Now, if he bet on his team to lose, he would never get in the way I look at it. And it was a lifetime ban. Well, he's dead. They'll probably put him in next year. But here's the story I'm going to tell you tonight. And I could read off everything. Everything this guy did. We know about the all-time hits, 4,256. He had 3,215 career singles. He had more career plate appearances than anybody in history, 15,890. Played 24 years. I could go on and on. Rookie of the Year, NL MVP. 17 all-star appearances at 5 different positions. The only person to ever play 5 different positions. He played first, second, third, right field, left field, switch hitter. Okay, we could talk all about. We know about Pete Rose. And I'll tell you, as a talk show host, there's 2 things you got to remember as a talk show host. If you know anything about sports, a lot of the guys on now, they only know what happened yesterday. Okay, they don't really spend time like I would, trying to, find the history. If you really love sports, man, you dive in. But some guys, they just come in and they watch the clock, and when 3 hours up, they get to go home. It's like a prison sentence, okay? But I will tell you this. If you're a talk show host, I don't care where. You could be in San Diego, Los Angeles, Philadelphia, New York, Cincinnati. If you had a slow night or a slow day, 2 things you got to talk about. Maybe not in San Diego any longer, because I don't think people really like talking about the NFL. But it used to be a staple. You talk the NFL any time of year because people are buy into the NFL, especially if you have a team in the city. Okay, and the other thing, hey, what do you think? My opinion, Pete Rose ought to be in the Hall of Fame. What do you think? And the phones will light up like a Christmas tree. And the intern that's running the phone calls, he's going crazy. The guy on the board's going, "Hey, get those phone calls up, man. They're hot. Everybody wants to talk about Pete Rose." But here's a story on Pete Rose, and I got a great story, and it's a legitimate story, and nobody else has that story except two other people that are alive right now that were there at the table. Okay. Dave Garcia, who was one of my best friends in baseball. You remember Greg Garcia, who played for the Cardinals and the Padres? Okay, his grandfather was in professional baseball for over 70 years. Okay, and he was a good friend of mine, and he taught me a lot about baseball over the years. He'd come out and watch my team work out. When I was a high school, college coach, I would invite him out. "Hey, Dave, I want you to come out, see what we're doing. What can we do better?" I wasn't afraid as a coach to have other people come out and scout my team. Okay, I wanted to get better. I wanted my team to get better. If I got better, my team was going to get better. But Dave Garcia is no longer with us. Dave passed away, a few years ago now. But we had set up this dinner. Remember Philly Billy Werndell, who was one of my great friends in the radio business? Okay, he knew Dave Garcia, not maybe this way I did, because Dave lived in San Diego, lived in El Cajon, and I've known him since I was in high school, basically. But the guy that Bill knew really well was a guy named Bill White. And Bill White was an outstanding major league player. He eventually became really an incredible baseball announcer for the New York Yankees for many, many years. And then he became the National League president. Remember when baseball used to have presidents? You had the commissioner that oversaw everything, but you had a National League president and an American League president. So anyways, Dave Garcia managed a lot in the minor leagues with the San Francisco Giants. He had Orlando Cepeda, Jim Ray Hart, and he had Bill White. And Bill White played, I think he played for the Cardinals. I know he played for the Giants, but he had a great career. So Bill Werndell, knowing Bill White as well as he did, it's like Bill Werndell's best friend, Bill White. And then he got to know Dave Garcia, and Dave had managed Bill White in the minor leagues. So we got this dinner set up, and I'm going to get to Pete Rose here in a minute, because Pete Rose was a big part of our conversation this night. So anyways, we have this big deal, and Dave's daughter brings him down to the radio station, and then I drove Dave to Donovan's Steakhouse there. It was the UTC one. And we go there, and Bill White's meeting us there, and Bill Werndell's meeting us there. So there's four of us. And Donovan's, you people that went to Donovan, you know how good it was. So we're sitting there. We're talking about a million things. And Pete Rose comes up. Okay, now when Pete accepted the lifetime ban, this is what I'm getting to. And this is why he's not in the Hall of Fame right now. When Pete accepted the lifetime ban, basically they didn't say anything, and he didn't say anything. And he was asked about it. Did you bet on baseball? No, I didn't bet on baseball. Okay. When he was kicked out of baseball for a lifetime ban by Bart Giamatti, who, by the way, died 8 days after this. And that's another reason Rose wasn't going to get in, because Fay Vincent took over, and he was buddies and worked underneath Bart Giamatti, and everybody felt the stress killed Bart Giamatti from having to knock Rose out of the game. But Giamatti was a very heavy smoker. He had a lot of health issues, but he died 8 days after he gives Pete Rose this lifetime ban. So anyways, Rose, in his lifetime ban, it said he could ask for reinstatement a year from the day. Well, the problem was, and Bill White had this whole thing set up and told Pete, "Hey, keep your mouth shut and we'll get you back in the game," kind of wink, wink. And Pete Rose wasn't always the smartest guy. He was very smart on a baseball field, but off the field, he made a ton of mistakes. And, he kept professing his innocence. And it took 15 years before he ever came clean in an interview that he bet on baseball. And Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame. And I will tell you this, every coach that I had in the Solana Beach Little League, and I had some damn good coaches that created a great passion for me to love the game of baseball. And I had a grandfather who lived with us for 11 years, who created a great passion for baseball. My brother, my dad, great passion for us to, be involved in athletics. But I never had a youth league coach that wouldn't come up to me at some point in time during the season and said, John, you got to play the game like Pete Rose. Pete Rose made a lot of mistakes in his life. A lot of mistakes. He wasn't a good husband. I don't know what kind of father he was. I can't speak on that. Made a ton of mistakes and made a lot of enemies. But on the field, there's never a guy that wanted to win more and never a guy that played the game harder. And I think a lot of people that grew up in the 60s, 70s, and even 80s that watch the game of baseball will tell you there's only one Pete Rose. And I know Ray Fosse, who I got to know a little bit. Ray passed away a couple of years ago. He was the catcher in 1970 when Jim Hickman got the base hit in extra innings to the outfield, and Rose ran over Ray Fosse. He separated his shoulder, and Ray Fosse was really never the same player. He played for a number of years in the big leagues, but basically because he was a good catch and throw guy, offensively, he kind of disappeared after that. And, he held, I think, a real grudge against Pete Rose. But Pete Rose, it was an all-star game, and all-star games now aren't like they were back then. You used to have the league presidents give fire and brimstone speeches. Guys like Willie Mays, Hank Aaron, a lot of the guys, they played 9 innings. They didn't come out after 3 or 4 innings. They wanted to win for their league. So Pete Rose, 60s, 70s, 80s, a lot of us that grew up and were watching baseball, playing baseball, coaching baseball, you wanted guys to be like Charlie Hustle, Pete Rose. No question about it. So if you got any comments on that, give them to me right now. But I think Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame, but I also think at the bottom of his plaque, it should say that he received a lifetime ban from baseball. Because as far as I know, this happened when he was managing the Cincinnati Reds. And by the way, in my opinion, watching him manage, if he'd have continued to manage, he'd have probably been a Hall of Fame manager. I mean, he had a pretty good record as a manager. He had a .525 winning percentage. But he knew how to handle ball players. I mean, that's, like I said, that's where he fit in best. He was a square peg trying to fit into a round hole out in everyday life. He was best when he was at the ballpark. It's that simple. And what was really cool, and I don't know if it came down, I didn't really read a lot of articles on him. I read so much on him yesterday. Probably died of a broken heart. But the day before, he was at an event with Davey Concepcion, who in my opinion should be in the Hall of Fame, one of the great shortstops I ever seen. I know in that era it was all about Ozzie Smith, but Davey Concepcion, hell of a ball player. Look up his numbers. I mean, he's a hell of a player. And a really good clutch hitter. He was with Davey Concepcion. He was with George Foster. He was with Ken Griffey Sr. And Johnny Bench. I don't think Johnny Bench was at that event, but there were about 4 or 5 Big Red Machine guys. And by the way, they always talk about the 98 Yankee team that beat the Padres. They were great. But I'll tell you, those 75, 76 Big Red Machines teams with, Sparky Anderson managing, they were off the chart. Absolutely off the chart. So if anybody has a comment, get in here in the next couple of minutes because we're going to get out of here. And we're going to get you ready, though, for tomorrow night. Tomorrow night could be huge. It could be absolutely huge. Okay, let's take a look. Fred slots and stuff. I like it. Stay focused. Tomorrow's a big game. Biggest game of the year tomorrow. The last thing you want to do, folks, and the Padres did exactly, like I mentioned earlier, exactly what they needed to do tonight. They had a kid pitcher out there with very little major league experience, and they took advantage of him early, and they got a fantastic pitching performance by Michael King and 2 guys coming out of the bullpen. And they hit a couple of bombs. It sure took a lot of pressure off of King, though. Bottom of the first, the Rise gets on. Boom. Ball into the second deck. Everybody's going crazy. Incredible. You fans have been incredible. In fact, let me take a look at the official total tonight on that attendance. The attendance was over 47,000. How about 47,647 in the ball game? This is baseball. Took 2 hours and 9 minutes. Now, that's real baseball. And crisp. I mean, they were moving. A lot of stuff going on. Adam had 3 Ks. You know what? I think you're right on that because I was writing it. I looked at it earlier, and then I looked away, and yeah, he did have 3 Ks. So the Bravos struck out 15 times tonight. How about that? Not a good night for the Bravos. Very tough night for the Bravos, but they'll regroup. They got a good left-hander, and Joe Musgrove will be ready to go. As long as Joe goes out there, doesn't try to overthrow, do too much, his mechanics have been spotless. That's the big thing about Joe Musgrove that I've noticed more than anything else, and it's played, for his breaking ball better. Since he's come back from that injury, his mechanic, he's not spinning off towards first base very often. Every once in a while he will, but man, his direction to home plate has been really, really outstanding. P, Coach, you're the best. Hey, thank you very much, P. I really appreciate that. I got to be honest, I'm having a blast doing this podcast. You know why? Because I can talk. I don't have to, we got great sponsors. We got great people behind the scenes kicking butt. And we're continuing to grow our listenership. And please subscribe if you would. And please tell your friends. I mean, I was on the radio for a long time. And a lot of people are kind of wondering what happened to me. Well, I got unceremoniously dumped after the Padres season last year. And that was what they did to me was wrong. All the people in the radio business knew it was wrong. In fact, I'll tell you a real funny story. I'm an open book. I'm an open book on this stuff. I was at an event a couple of weeks ago. Bobby D. Philippe, who passed away, it was a friend of mine and always treated me great respect. He was a sponsor when I was with the Sockers. And Shotgun Tom Kelly, the great Shotgun Tom Kelly. I got to buy his book. We got a radio reunion coming up. I got to buy his book. $45 for the hardcover, $25 for the soft cover. But he come up to me during this boxing event, and he was one of the MCs and announcers. He come up, put his arm around me, and goes, "You know what? Everybody in the radio business knows you got screwed." And I go, "Shotgun, that means a lot to me." So, and I know all my listeners are loyal. They know what happened. I mean, when you get kicked to the side, when you got the highest ratings in midday sports radio dating back to 1990, something's rotten in Denmark on that one. But nonetheless, hey, I'm loving the podcast. I work with great people, got this great little studio we work out of, and I get to talk Padres. So thank you very much. I really, really appreciate it. And again, tomorrow night, we got Big Joe Musgrove going on the mound. I'll text Mrs. Musgrove, who's a good friend of mine, Diane, and her husband, Mark, great people. I remember I did that remote out there a couple of years ago at Cafe Adesso. Oh man, that was one for the ages. We had about 600 people show up. It was awesome. But Joe going tomorrow night against Max Fried. Again, Max Fried on the year 11-10 with a 3.25, and Big Joe Musgrove 6-5 with a 3.88. And if needed on Thursday, Game 3. It'd be Charlie Morton, 8-10 and a 4.19 going against our guy, Dylan Cease, 14-11 and a 3.47. Now, I can tell you this. The Braves, they'll have some guys ready to go tomorrow night. And not only that, I don't think they'll bring back Reynaldo Lopez tomorrow night, but I bet you he's backing up Charlie Morton if they get to a Game 3. Okay, because Lopez pitched over the weekend. He pitched 1 inning yesterday, and then you got to give him a little bit of rest, but I would think he would probably be the guy coming in behind Charlie Morton on Thursday night if there is a Game 3, and let's hope there's not. Boy, wouldn't it be great to win it in 2 and get Thursday and Friday off, and man, get all that pitching in order? Oh man, that'd be awesome. Again, Padres win Game 1 over the Atlanta Braves 4-0. Michael King, absolutely fantastic. 7 innings, 5 hits, no walks, 12 strikeouts. Fernando hits a 2-run bomb in the first inning. Kyle Higashioka, a big night, couple of RBIs, a sac fly in the second, and then he hit the solo homer in the 8th inning off of Luke Jackson. So a great night all the way around. Great crowd at Petco Park, and let's do it all again tomorrow night, folks. We'll be on tomorrow night shortly after Game 2. Win, lose, or draw, we'll be here. Hopefully you will be as well. For the entire staff here at the John Quintero Show, San Diego Sports Talk, Thank you very much for tuning in. And again, San Diego, the Padres take game 1 tonight in the wild card series against the Atlanta Braves, 4-0. Talk to you again tomorrow night, everyone. Bye-bye.